What Happens in the Woods is a true crime podcast. We discuss events that are often violent in nature. Listeners' discretion is advised.
When the body of a young woman is found off the old Columbia Highway in Oregon in January of 1990, detectives had no idea just how twisted the story of her death would turn out to be. A woman soon came forward implicating her longtime boyfriend and eventually herself in the murder of 23-year-old Tanya Bennett. The matter was considered closed and justice served. Not long after, notes and letters began to pop up from a person claiming that the murder was his responsibility and his alone, and he was still killing. The letters would all be signed with a chilling smiley face in lieu of a name. Thus, the happy-faced killer became known to the world. The acts this killer delighted in doing leave a cold chill in our spines. He was a monster in every sense of the word. Join us for our discussion this episode on the happy-faced killer, his real identity, and all that it would take to finally track down the man who traveled along the Pacific coast, preying on women and killing them without conscience. This is True Crime Podcast, What Happens in the Woods, with your hosts, Jess and Bryce. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here for our third episode in our fourth season. We're here. Hi, Bryce.
Hi.
You came prepared?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Just spent time with family and, enjoyed the day. We were pretty low-key this year.
Were we?
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it not?
Cards Against Humanity didn't sound low-key.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you can be low-key with Cards Against Humanity.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a tradition that we played on major holidays.
Yeah.
Family time.
Quality family time with Cards Against Humanity.
Yes. Good, wholesome fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. With me and the kids.
Yep.
Yeah, because you won't ever partake.
I watch.
You didn't even watch.
I did.
You heard.
I had things to do.
What?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Okay. It was a low-key year. It was low-key.
Sure.
Yeah. With your 22-pound turkey.
Yes.
I swear every year you feel like we're going to feed like 20 people.
We could.
I mean, we could. That's the thing, but we don't. We don't know that many people here.
We could. Just next year, open invitation.
To who?
Everybody.
Okay. Everybody's coming for Thanksgiving. You heard it here. Bryce invited you.
The door is open.
The door is always open. All right. Are you ready for Christmas?
I just got over Thanksgiving.
I had the tree out.
So yeah.
I had the tree
Everyone's.
out. Like
I feel rushed.
the 20.
Everyone in the neighborhood has already put up their lights like way before.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, the lights have been up for like 3 weeks now, and in the neighborhood, for the most part, a lot of the houses have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When are you going to get our lights up?
Oh, stop.
When are they going to get up? It's December.
Yeah.
Get on it. We only have so many days of merrymaking. All right. Well, hopefully everybody is safe, doing well, ready to get on with the part 2 of the holiday season for Christmas.
Part 2.
Yeah, part 2, and then New Year's right along after that.
Yay.
Yeah.
Where is this year gone?
I don't know. I can't tell you. It's crazy. It's moving too fast, but it's also dragging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
What?
You know what I watched?
What?
That 60-minute special about the Turpin kids. Remember that?
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet.
It's sad.
What do you mean it's sad?
I mean,
it's sad.
It's very inspiring, but like it's like I'm watching it, listening to this girl speak, and she's just so behind. Like she really doesn't put words together well.
How old were the two? Because it was the two daughters that gave.
The oldest. Well, the oldest daughters, because there's one daughter who's like 33 now.
Really?
Yeah, she was 29, and she's like bad.
I didn't realize they were that old.
Yeah, and then there was she's the oldest, and then there was a son. He didn't want to be on camera, and then the 17-year-old, who now she's 21, when she was given this interview, and just neither one of them were like on. They were so tiny too. I mean, they're it was horrible.
Well, they were treated horribly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they lived in filth and squalor. It was so bad.
Yeah. I have a hard time watching those things. It's funny what affects me and what doesn't. I don't want to say doesn't affect me, but I can handle. And children who are mistreated like that for some reason, it really disturbs me to the point where I can't listen. I can't hear about it. It makes me that upset.
Yeah. I think it's this whole true crime thing is I just want to know what happened, like how they lived. And I mean, they gave every detail, man. If you guys didn't watch that 60-minute special, and it's in 2 parts, and it's pretty, I don't want to say informative, but it gives you like a glimpse into how they lived, and just and then how the deputy reacted to it. Like he was very skeptical. He was like, "Are you on medication?" But then just how behind she was, and she's like, "What's medication?"
Oh,
yeah. She's like, "Sometimes we take Robitussin." She's like, "But I don't know what is medication?" And
God.
And it's I don't know. Maybe it was just me, and I'm like, "Is she kidding? Is she joking? Like who doesn't?"
She probably is not.
No, and that's when I realized, and then listening for the whole interview, like how she was speaking.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this her accent? It's because, they were from West Virginia, but then they pulled them out of school. I don't know. Right. I don't want to get into it, but we have an episode to do. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's very telling. Those 2 girls are very brave.
Yeah.
You can just see how sheltered they were, how just abused.
Yeah.
There were kids chained to the bed. Okay, I won't get into it.
No, I remember when the news broke, but I think I've purposefully stayed away from it.
Yeah, it's
So I remember hearing about a case. Well, I read it in the newspaper when I was pregnant with Mara. So 20 something years ago.
Yeah,
and. We were living in Humboldt County, and there was a case of a child who died, and it was along those lines. They were like kept in a closet, living off their own feces and urine, and no food. And they passed away, and it was talking about the parents' like convictions.
Yeah.
And I just remember having that like a light bulb moment where you realize that there are people in this world who do those things to other people, to children, to helpless, individuals who you're supposed to protect. Yeah. And it wrecked me. I had to leave work that day.
Yeah.
I was a mess. It was all from reading this article. And I was, I think, like 8 months pregnant when that happened.
Yeah.
And I just remember like walking home and just crying and crying and crying.
Yeah.
And being so worked up over it. And ever since then, I it's just really, stuff like that just really affects me. And it angers me to the point where I'm so frustrated because what am I going to do about it? Yeah. But also, people need to know that this happens because you need to see the signs of this.
Yeah.
Like you need to be paying attention.
Yeah. And it's just during the holiday season and where I work, it's kind of like the thing that plays over and over in the lobbies is the human trafficking video. I'm not laughing at it, but it's just like they constantly, it's on a steady loop that's just over and over and over again.
Talking about human trafficking.
Yeah, because people need to know the signs. And sometimes your intuition is right. Other times it's just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, no, I've read recently that a mom and her daughter on an airline, the stewardess thought that she was kidnapping the child.
Oh.
Because they were not. Her
mom
was white and
yeah.
the kid was like black.
Yeah, and I remember reading that, and it's like you've got to understand that you can have a mixed family, you can have a blended family, you can have a mom who looks white and her be the natural parent and the dad be African American and the child not look like the mom at all.
Yeah.
It happens. You have to understand that, but you also have to pay attention to the behavior of what they're doing, not what they're telling you.
Yeah.
Their behavior, you know. It's sad. It's sad that we have to do these things, that we have to pay attention to these things. It's just sad. Way to depress me. way to start the episode, Bryce.
You're welcome.
No, I do want to watch that. So anybody who's seen it, let us know what your thoughts are on that, because I definitely am going to watch it. I need to be in a different mindset. And this case that I've been researching was not the mindset.
No,
not at all.
Right.
So all right, well, now that Bryce has been Debbie Downer, the most you've spoken in 6 months.
I know. No, that's not true.
Since the Halloween episode.
WTFs.
WTFs, yeah. You love your WTFs.
Yes.
All right, are we ready to get into this case?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Our wild tale this episode begins with the disappearance and murder of a young girl just outside of Portland, Oregon. 23-year-old Tanya Bennett loved to be social. She was regularly fond of meeting new people and striking up conversations. Some information that I have stated that she was very naive and she trusted everyone. She just really was one of those people that did not think that there were bad people in the world. There is a possibility that she may have been a person with special needs.
Yeah.
I can't confirm that, but possibly an intellectual disability. It was mentioned in a few articles, and this is going back to 1990. So I don't think that they would have stated it this way now, but that she was slightly mentally retarded. I'm not sure how they would state that now in newspaper outlets, but it definitely is a possibility that she might have had some sort of intellectual disability or
I think that's how they would state it now. Or, learning disability.
Like a delay. So I though, again, can't confirm that was actual fact. Of course, in 1990, I don't, there were a lot of places still that didn't do a whole lot of testing for that kind of stuff. Yeah. So she may never have been tested.
Which is weird for Portland. Even outlying or surrounding areas. Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I also just didn't really need to research her whole medical history and or school history or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, it's enough.
That's not what we're focusing on here.
That's not what we're focusing on. and I think that there are people who are just genuinely naive.
Yeah.
And really see the good in people and never think to be, have that presence of self-awareness that they could be harmed. There are people like that. So I didn't want to presume that it was because of an intellectual disability.
Well, they're not like me, just a skeptical asshole.
Well, we're just a bunch of fucking skeptical assholes because that's all I think about.
What's your angle here?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I don't trust anybody anymore. Are you kidding me?
Let me see your hands.
Let me see your hands. Oh my God. Okay. On January 21st, 1990, Tanya went missing. She didn't return home from an evening out. That night, turns out she was at a tavern outside of Portland called B&I Tavern. And, her mom said it wouldn't be unusual for her to meet somebody there and, not be home for a couple of nights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she went missing. And unfortunately, the next day, a cyclist would come across the body of the young woman along the old Columbia River Highway.
Oh.
The woman would be identified later as Tanya. The only information investigators gathered from the area was that the crime was not committed there. Her body had been moved after her death to that location. She was found partially clothed. Her pants were down around her knees, and weirdly, the button fly, this is the 90s, so they were acid wash. It was an all button fly, no zipper and button. It was all button.
Yeah.
The buttons had been cut off. The button portion
That's
had
weird.
been cut off. Yeah.
Did someone just not know how to do buttons?
No, there's a reason. It'll come up later.
Trophies.
No.
Oh.
There was a rope around her neck, suggesting strangulation, but there was nothing on the body to help with identification. They also found a single hair with no root on her stomach. The coroner would report that she had been sexually assaulted, and the manner of death was asphyxiation. Geez, that word. Asphyxiation due to damage to her throat.
Okay.
After a sketch was made and circulated, Tanya's mother called in and stated to the detectives that she thought it may be her daughter. Unfortunately, it was. Not many details were released to the public at first, but
sometimes a mother knows.
I mean, I'm sure she knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sketch was pretty decent. Her face had been beaten pretty well.
Oh.
So for them to get the good sketch that they got was actually surprising to me. So yeah, public didn't get all of the details at first. They were hoping that, they could keep some of the details back so that when they did identify somebody, they would have a better way of really making sure that they had the right person. Yeah. They were hoping that, somebody would come through, but really quickly they were getting nowhere. So a little more details were released in hopes that something would jog the memory of anyone who might know her or had been in contact with her that night. And a photo of where the body had been located was released to the press, as well as information about the missing button fly from the jeans. They were able to find some witnesses from that. Investigators spoke to the bartender at the tavern that night, working there. She, was seen playing pool with two different men that he didn't recognize, but she was a regular there. He did know Tanya. No one could remember who she left with or when she left. And just when it looks like things are coming to a dead end, an anonymous call comes in from a woman who claims she overheard a man bragging about committing the crime at a bar.
Same bar?
Different bar.
Oh, okay.
Due to a misspelling of the man's name, there's no follow-up. About a week after that, another call comes in, and again, an anonymous woman gives the name once more. This time, detectives are able to follow up on the name. So she stated that it was a person named John Cesnovsky.
I'd misspell that too.
Yeah, it's quite easy to misspell. So 39-year-old John Cesnovsky was a former criminal who had been charged with multiple DUIs. He was currently on probation.
Just for the DUI?
For DUIs.
Like no death associated with it?
No.
Okay.
The detective on Tanya's case contacted, saying I'm going to have a hard time with his name, Cesnovsky. Yeah. Contacted his parole officer, who stated he got a similar call from a woman about Cesnovsky talking in a bar about how he had met Tanya. Turns out this call was from Cesnovsky's own girlfriend.
Oh.
57-year-old Laverne Pavlinak.
How old is this guy?
39.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very odd relationship. So they track down Laverne. They pay her a visit. The detectives learn from her that the two had been in a relationship for around 10 years and that it was not a happy relationship. John had quite the temper, and he was quite fond of drinking until he blacked out.
Yeah.
She also claimed that he was abusive to her and that she was, deathly afraid of him.
Like, how many DUIs did he have?
I'm not sure, but I think I read that he had like 3 DUIs.
Yeah, I was gonna say because he had
multiple.
He'd have a problem with. You don't just like I mean, I can see your first one as an accident. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I think I'm okay to drive. You have 3. You're just fucking trying. You're like on purpose. You're
and I think one of them involved him. One other incident, not DUI related, but I think he had like an incident of like a violent incident with another person where his information. It's so hard sometimes. His information is linked to Laverne's information, and you'll know why soon. But Laverne's information is linked to Tanya's information. So it's so hard to isolate one person sometimes.
Yeah, it's like the Misty Copsy.
Yeah.
Where the other body was found.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was not able to request any because it was 1990 and all of her stuff was prior. There's nothing online, and I wasn't able to request like his records.
You didn't drive down there?
I didn't. I apologize. There was a lot going on lately.
Know.
Okay, sorry.
Just think Thanksgiving or a national holiday was going on.
Oh my God!
Come on.
So she claims that on the night of the 21st, Cesnovsky had her drive him to a bar in Wilsonville and drop him off.
Okay.
Which is not where this BNI tavern is. He managed to get home around 2 a.m., and she said that it was odd that he went right in to take a shower before coming to bed. Apparently that was not the norm. Usually he was so drunk that he could not have taken a shower. So she remarks that was out of the ordinary.
Okay.
After taking her statement, she gives permission for the detectives to search her apartment, but they come up with nothing that looks like it would tie him to the murder of Tanya.
Uh-huh.
However, they did find an envelope addressed to John Cesnovsky, and on the back of it, there was written, quote, T. Bennett, good peace. With that, the detectives bring in John for questioning, and he proceeds to deny any connection to Tanya or her murder. He seems a little confused that they're asking him if he has any connection to her.
Yeah.
And he denies writing on the envelope because he says he has no knowledge of it.
What?
Yeah.
What is this? This is not my handwriting.
So since they don't have anything substantial to hold him with, he's released.
Are they tailing him?
No.
Oh.
Cesnovsky is about to be excluded as a person of interest until days later. Laverne is again in contact with detectives, and this time she has something to give them. She presents them with a brown paper bag that she had stapled shut. Inside, there is a purse, and inside that purse is what appears to be the fly from a pair of acid-wash jeans with buttons.
Okay.
Investigators think, here we go. This is it. We've got our big break, and we're gonna, we got what we needed. We're gonna get this person. So they bring John in again for questioning, while the piece of material is sent off to be analyzed as a potential match to the jeans found on Tanya's body. But in a strange twist, Cesnovsky completely changed his statement from the original denial just days before. So in a recorded statement, John admits to knowing Tanya. He claims that on the night of the 21st, she was at a bar playing darts with a friend. That friend and Tanya left together, and he refers to her as T. Bennett the entire time.
Oh.
He says a while later, his friend gives him a ride home and came back around and picked him up and gave him a ride home. And what should he notice in the back of the seat of, back seat of the car? None other than the body of a deceased female.
So he's saying his
wrapped in
friend?
a blanket. He's saying that his friend came back, left with Tanya, came back, picked him up to give him a ride home, and that there's a deceased female in the back of his car. And he's just fine getting in the car and getting a ride home with the body of a deceased female in the back of the car.
Okay.
But he does not at any time during his statement admit to killing Tanya or having knowledge of how she died.
I'm sorry. I would have walked home, been like, yeah, is that a dead body?
Right. That's creepy.
Yeah, I'm going to walk home. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it makes.
And why
no
wouldn't
sense.
you tell anyone? Like even
Right.
your girlfriend, or, you know.
Right.
The weirdest thing happened to me, honey.
Yeah, right.
So I was so drunk, I called. There's a dead body in the back.
Right.
I wanted to get home, so
I wanted to get home, and I was already happy to take me.
yeah, I was.
Let's just go.
We were already going.
Yeah, it's all good. It's fine.
Some people, alcohol.
I guess. However, so the fabric that Laverne supplied to them comes back, and it's not a match to the jeans.
What?
Right.
What the fuckery is going on, Laverne?
Exactly. The detectives are flabbergasted. Just exactly what you said. What the hell is going on? When Tanya's mom is asked if the purse matched the one that she would carry, she denied ever having seen it. So again, what is going on? Where's the truth?
Yeah.
They confront Laverne, and she admits to making fake evidence, basically, in an attempt to help the police get her boyfriend behind bars.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
I guess.
She tried to set him up with like life in prison without the possibility of parole.
We're not done.
Oh.
She was so worried that he was going to walk away free and not be held accountable for this crime that she says she resorted to this. They basically tell her, look, we need the truth. We're going to start from square one. You're going to tell us the truth. What the fuck is going on? What really happened? Because none of this is making sense. None. He's changed his story. You've changed your story. What is going on? So she goes back to the night, and this time she also gives a conflicting version of the events that took place. So yet another version.
Okay.
This time, she names herself as an accomplice to the murder of Tanya Bennett. In this statement, she tells detectives that John Cesnovsky called her telling her that he needed her help and to bring something to wrap a body in. She arrives at the bar to find him outside with the body of a young woman hiding in the parking lot. He wraps the body in a blue shower curtain that Laverne had brought and places her in the back seat.
Is he just carrying shower curtains?
Yeah, no, she brought it.
Okay.
He wraps the body in the shower curtain, places her in the back seat of the car, and tells Laverne to drive. They pull off somewhere in the woods, and John takes the body out of the car, leaves it by the side of the road. They dispose of the shower curtain in another area. Laverne states that John threatened to kill her, her family, her grandchildren, if she ever spoke of this to anyone. And the detectives believe her. Laverne is also able to direct the detectives to where the body was found in the Columbia Gorge, and it seals the deal. So John Cesnovsky is arrested and charged based off of that statement and charged with aggravated murder. And you would think at this point the case is solved, right?
Oh,
Wrong. 100% wrong.
No, because, yeah, she can't keep her shit together.
Right.
Is it the third time?
And neither can he.
Yeah.
So Laverne isn't done. Days later, she is in contact once again with the detectives with yet another version of the story. In this version, Tanya was alive when Laverne showed up at the bar after getting a phone call from John. Laverne claims Tanya was going to have sex with John, so they drove off to a location along the old Columbia Highway. It's called the Vista House.
Okay.
And she tells the detectives the story of how the two got out of the car and they went into this building and they began to engage in sex. John later comes back to the car to get rope and tells Laverne that he wants to choke Tanya because it will be, quote, more of a thrill. But somehow Laverne ends up going back with him, and she is the one who ends up placing the rope around Tanya's neck and choking her while John is completing the sexual act. And then, of course, while he's doing this, he's punching Tanya in the neck and choking her. And he's punching her in the face.
What in the holy fuck is going on?
Right. At some point, Laverne claims she knew that Tanya was dead, and she thought...
You think?
Right. Detectives just find this version incredible because here's this older grandma, sweet little lady. She's very soft-spoken.
Yeah.
You know, every time they come to the house to talk to her, she's got like a little tea set and coffee ready for them. Mm-hmm. And what the fuck are you doing with this guy? Like, why? What is going on here with this guy who's, a blackout drunk and who wants to engage in sex acts with a young girl? You're going to help him? Like, it just is incredible.
Yeah.
Right. Not only that, but she's now implicating herself in murder. And in her interview, she states like she felt like this was all her fault. And they've recorded this interview. She's given up her rights. She's telling them point blank everything. The emotion in her voice is just, to listen to her say these things, she's shaken. And they don't know what the fuck to do with this. It just doesn't make sense, and it's like the weirdest thing to come from this woman.
Well, it still doesn't make sense.
Right. So she's arrested, of course, after confessing to this, much to the detective's reluctance to do so. To the deputy DA who had gotten involved at this point, however, this woman was a master manipulator, and he felt with all certainty that she was completely guilty of this crime and that Cesnovsky was in cahoots with her, and he was brooking no arguments about it.
I don't like that word.
Why?
Cahoots.
Cahoots? Sorry. I like cahoots.
It just sounds weird.
I like it. Sorry.
It always reminds me of Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Okay.
You Duke boys. In cahoots.
In cahoots.
Come on, Flash. Sorry for the youngins.
So both of them went to trial, Laverne first, and in a shocking twist, both of them began to recant their confessions.
Of course.
And they claimed to be innocent of any crime against Tanya.
Because Cesnovsky is now sober. He's like, oh, shit, I didn't say that.
Yeah. It comes out during Laverne's trial that she was so desperate to get John Cesnovsky away from her and her family because of how abusive he was that she made all of this up. Her confession, the fake evidence, her part in the murder, all of it was a lie. What was anyone going to believe from her now, though?
Yeah.
You can't cry wolf.
No, you can't. Yeah, turn in evidence, make up a story, and then be like, okay, look, this is what really happened.
Right.
So what had happened was. And then now you confess to some more shit.
Right.
And then now you're like, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Just kidding.
And it was too late. Mind you, there's no physical evidence to connect her to the crime.
Yeah.
None. In Laverne's trial, the prosecution used her multiple statements and confessions and the fact that she knew where the body had been left as proof of her involvement in the crime. Her claims of innocence were ignored, and a jury found her guilty. She was convicted in 1991 of felony murder and sentenced to life in prison with possibility of parole after 10 years. So,
when was she sentenced? 91, you said?
91.
So she could get out this year.
Well, we're not done.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
We haven't even begun, honey. After his attempt to recant his confession doesn't work out, and Laverne is convicted after recanting hers with no evidence, basically, other than her statements.
Yeah.
John then decides he's probably going to be convicted as well. He doesn't think it's going to go well for him, so he pleads no contest to murder and kidnapping. And he actually fears at this point that he may have been so blackout drunk, as he usually was every night, that he may have actually killed her. But he doesn't remember is the problem.
That's the problem.
Yeah. And an expert from the crime labs claims that the hair found on Tanya's stomach was likely a match to Cesnovsky. And, of course, they had Laverne's statements and his odd statement that he gave where he was in the car with his friend with her body in the back seat.
Yeah.
Or a body in the back seat.
A body.
Yeah. The lack of concrete evidence doesn't seem to cause anyone any concern. And he was sentenced to life in prison as well without possibility of parole.
What? Why?
Well, because they both had given these statements and implicated themselves.
Yeah, but she got 10, possibility of parole. He's just nope.
No.
You gets none.
Well, he had a prior. I mean, he had priors too.
Oh, well, I guess so.
Yeah. Oregon state prosecutors feel that justice has been served for Tanya Bennett. They put the matter to rest once Laverne and John are behind bars. The DA that prosecuted was, even in his interview that I watched to this day, still feels like he did his job and he did the right thing.
Now the patting on the back begins.
Right.
Was it an election year? Was he up for re-election?
It might have been. But something interesting turns up that would cause the detectives. Remember, I said the detectives didn't really
have any physical evidence.
They really couldn't say that this woman was connected in any way other than her statements. And it caused them a lot of distress to have to arrest her. So detectives and news reporters began to question whether the right people were behind bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the bathroom of a Greyhound bus station in Montana, a note was written on a wall that stated, quote, "I killed Tanya Bennett, January 21st, 1990, in Portland, Oregon. I beat her to death, raped her, and loved it. Yes, I'm sick, but I enjoy myself too. People took the blame, and I'm free." And by this sick confession was only a round smiley face in the way of a signature. In 1994, a 6-page letter was sent to the Oregonian newspaper by an anonymous sender. The only seemingly signature on the letter was the repeat of a smiley face. The letter made its way to journalist Phil Stanford, who wrote for the crime section, and he read this letter on April 29th, 1994. The letter began with a smiley face and the words, quote, "all 5 of 5. It then starts, quote, "I would like to tell my story. I'm a good person at times. I always wanted to be liked." Halfway down that first page, the writer states, quote, "On or around January 20th, 1990, I picked up Sonia Bennett and took her home. I raped her and beat her real bad. Her face was all broken up. Then I ended her life by pushing my fist into her throat.
Oh, shit.
This turned me on. I got a high, then panic set in." And yes, notice I said Sonia, not Tanya. In the letter, the writer wrote it as such. It goes on to describe details of what the person did and how they did it, including where Tanya's purse with her ID was thrown near the Sandy River in Oregon, which authorities had at this point not found anything of her identification.
Yeah.
Previous letters had been sent to other places, including the Statesman Journal, another media outlet in Oregon, and the Washington County Courthouse in Oregon. All these letters contained information on what the person had done and how. The letters were signed with a smiley face. But no one took them seriously because there were 2 convicted killers sitting in jail for the murder of Tanya Bennett.
Of course.
That was until the Oregonian printed the letter in 1994. And when we return from this break, we'll talk more about the other crimes the writer of this letter would commit and his identity. We'll talk about the eventual capture of the man who would later be known to the world as the Happy Face Killer. It wasn't only Tanya's murder that the writer confesses to. He goes on to talk about his next 4 murders up until that point and provides an alarming amount of detail of their murders as well as a look into his mind. In July of 1992, the killer talked about meeting a woman simply known as Claudia, who was looking for a ride to Los Angeles. He claimed to have used duct tape to bind her arms and ankles together and would proceed to rape her repeatedly over the next 4 days.
He was holding her?
Yeah. What the writer thinks of as a game began where he would choke his victims until unconsciousness took over and then wait until the victim woke up again, rape and choke her once more.
This motherfucker is just torturing people.
Yes. He did this until she finally died and then disposed of the body just off Highway 95 in Southern California in some brush.
Southern California?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
Her body was
Is it
found...
just driving around with her?
Yes.
God damn.
Her body was found August 30th, 1992. Her actual identity is still unknown. Now that's 2 murders had been committed, and he had gotten away with them. The killer felt free to continue on as he pleased. The killer was obsessed with the fantasy of doing it again. Another woman was killed in August of 1992 in Turlock, California. It would be too quick of a kill with no satisfaction for him. After refusing the company of a woman named Cynthia at the truck stop where he was held up for the night, she would later barge into his truck and try to press her company on him, according to his statement in this letter. He was enraged and began to choke the woman till he realized that she was dead. Her body was dumped in garbage and waste at another truck stop and left. He realized again that he was safe from discovery. He was unchecked. The woman was identified as Cynthia Lynn Wilcox.
Wasn't it the same thing? Wayne Ford did that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This guy sounded familiar on so many. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's because.
Is he just a copycat?
No, he's not a copycat. It's. There's a lot that leads up to this for him, and I think he's a truck driver, so the nature of his job means that he's very transient.
Yeah, and
I think it has more to do with the psychology of the mind of somebody who would do this.
Yeah,
yeah.
I do. Yeah, I believe that there are more serial killers in trucks.
Yes,
because the nature of their job, like you said, is very transient, and they're never in the same place. They could get different routes. It's
right.
Yeah,
and especially in the 90s, there was no GPS.
No,
so you didn't really know where their location was until they checked in with their load or picking up their load.
Yeah,
or a truck stop, like a way station.
Yeah, because you have to sign for the load.
Right.
So that's the only way that, you could be tracked.
So now is a little bit harder to avoid coincidences and, crimes that are happening when people are in certain areas. You can track the trucks with GPS.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still doesn't mean that they can't get away with the crime, but a little bit easier to place them near a crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next victim was a sex worker from Wilsonville, Oregon, that the killer had previously had exchanges with. Needing to fulfill some of his sexual needs, he met up with Lori Ann Pentland after tracking her down through the CB radio on his truck. The two met up, but when they finished the encounter, an argument about the cost ensued. So enraged by being asked for more money, the killer delighted in choking the woman until she blacked out, and then for some time after would allow her to come back into consciousness, only to choke her again. Wow. Eventually, she was not able to wake up. He wrote, quote, "I felt so much power. I then told her she was going to die and slowly strangled her and dropped her off behind G.I. Joe's in Salem." The writer of the letter comments how stupid all of these sex workers were and how easy it was to take their lives. Lori's remains were left in an abandoned parking lot miles away from where he would drop off his next truckload. The next victim was picked up at a truck stop diner in Corning, California, months later in the early summer of 1993.
Mm-hmm.
The young girl was looking for help to get to her sister's in Sacramento and was out of money. After gladly paying for a meal and assuring her of his help, the girl pleaded for the killer to take her with him on his trip. It made him sick that she pleaded, and it sealed her fate.
Oh.
He had no use for weak females, and begging was disgusting as far as he was concerned. All women just wanted something from him, he wrote. After having consensual sex, the killer claims the girl, who he knew only as Cindy or Carla, he wasn't sure, suggested that they stay parked through the night where they were. He replied with the fact that she wouldn't have as much fun as he intended to have because he was going to kill her.
He told her that?
Mm-hmm. Then he proceeded to rape her and began his choking game until she would lose consciousness, just as he had with the other victims. She was found in Santanella, listed only as a street person by the police on their report, who had died from a suspected drug overdose. She remains unidentified to this day. The killer writes that he need not have worried about hiding the bodies of these women so well, since even after they were found, he was still free to do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Yeah.
But in the letter, he also wrote that he began to struggle with his conscience. And he knew that because it was becoming easy to find these women as long-haul truck driver, that was his job, he needed to find a different job. He was worried if he was found out, what it would do to his family. He wrote, quote, "I do not want to kill again. I want to protect my family from grief that would tear it apart. I feel bad, but I will not turn myself in. I'm not stupid." From all the information in the letter and the smiley faces on every page, Phil Stanford gave the killer the name the Happy Face Killer, and it stuck. But Phil Stanford began looking at these other murders and started calling authorities where these women's deaths were being investigated. The details in the letter were accurate for them all. But even after the contents of this letter was published, Laverne Pavlinac and John Cesnovsky remained behind bars. It didn't matter that both had now said they were innocent and recanted their statements. It didn't matter that a person with intimate knowledge of Tanya Bennett's murder and several other murders was trying to take credit for the crimes. No one was ready to say that they had the wrong people. And there was no way of knowing who this anonymous writer was, so they couldn't even investigate him.
Yeah.
Up until this point, none of these murders had even been connected because they were so spaced out across multiple states. Now, the letter talked about 5 murders, but the Happy Face Killer was not finished yet. There would be 3 more victims before the person responsible was caught. Before I tell you the identity of the killer, we're going to talk about those 3 victims. Even with claiming the victims as his own in all of those places, the killer was free to keep killing. For a while, he was able to starve off that urge by setting random fires along his truck driving route. He delighted in setting fields or small buildings ablaze and then watching as emergency personnel worked hard to put them out. Fires were set in Oregon, Washington, California, Arizona, and Nevada over the next year.
Huh.
But soon that wouldn't be enough, and the killer needed more. He needed another victim. In the fall of 1994, while on a long haul to Florida, the next victim to the Happy Face Killer would again be a Jane Doe. The killer gave her the name of Suzanne, but had no knowledge of who she really was. The two met in a store, and she needed a ride out of Florida. She was not looking for sex, and unfortunately, the killer was interested in raping and choking her as he had previously done. While parked in a lot overnight, he repeated, quote, the game, as he had called it, with her until she passed away. Her body was found near Crestview, Florida. Soon, another woman would unknowingly come into contact with the Happy Face Killer in January of 1995 at a hotel in Spokane, Washington. Angela Sabritz was looking for a ride to Denver to visit her dad. It was a prime opportunity for the killer. He couldn't pass it up. Days on the road with a woman brought him so much excitement. They headed off on the trip a few days later. However, after making a phone call to her dad told her not to come.
Oh.
So she changed destinations and asked for the killer to take her to Indiana to visit a previous boyfriend. At this point, the killer was feeling used and began to tire of the company of Angela, but she was entertaining him well enough up until now, so they continued on. After she became more demanding on reaching her ex-boyfriend, the killer decided he was done. This time, however, there was a problem. He had spent about a week in her company and had been seen at truck stops and rest stops with her. She had also used the killer's credit card to make that long-distance call with her dad. He had to go above and beyond killing and then dumping the body. He had to make sure that she was unidentifiable. After raping and choking Angela, he came up with the idea to tie the body to the undercarriage of his truck.
Oh, fuck.
And drive the interstate with her body being dragged against the pavement for miles to make her unrecognizable. After driving for some distance, there was barely any part left that could be used to identify Angela.
Like nobody saw that?
Apparently not. He left her mangled body in some tall grass along the highway and drove all night to concoct an alibi so that on the record with his trucking company, he had never been in the area near where any of this had occurred.
Yeah.
The 8th and final victim would turn out to be someone that had been in and out of the killer's life for over a few years. They had first met in a truck stop diner in Oregon only a few months before he would go on to kill Suzanne in Florida in 1994. When the short blonde woman walked into the diner, the killer said aloud that she, quote, had a backside that he'd like to rub. Taking no offense to the statement and curious about the man who had said it, Julianne Winningham invited him over to sit with her at her booth. They seemed to instantly hit it off. She just kind of began to be a staple in his life. She would go on trips with him, and it was as close to dating, as a relationship could be for both of them. But Julie had a love for getting high, and that was something the happy face killer wasn't into. He didn't do drugs. When it seemed that she was only looking for someone to take care of her, his interest started to fade. And after about a year of dating, the two parted ways. That was until the two had another chance encounter at a rest stop in Oregon. They were soon back to their old ways and even talked about marriage.
Ew.
But as Julie became more financially dependent on the killer, everything came to a head when she demanded he cover thousands of dollars worth of debt for a DUI ticket and other legal trouble that she was in. According to him and this letter, Julie had told him to pay up or she would go to the police and claim that he had raped her. Knowing that she very well might do that, he couldn't let it happen. So over the next few days, Julie was raped, choked, just as the other victims had been, until she was finally dead. In March of 1995, her body would be dumped down a 15-foot ravine off Highway 14 near Washougal, Washington. Sorry, I must have typed it wrong. The location is almost directly across the Columbia River from where Tanya Bennett's body had been found 5 years prior on the Oregon side. So she was on the Washington side, just across the river.
Yeah.
By this time, the killer had made a huge mistake. Too many people knew who Julie Winningham was dating. Too many people had seen them in truck stops and restaurants together. And he knew he was a man now living on borrowed time. But he continued on his normal schedule. He was on his way to New Mexico with a load for delivery, but he felt on edge the entire time.
He got sloppy.
Exactly. He was told after the delivery that the company he worked for would have something else for him, but he'd have to stay where he was for a few hours and call back when they worked some things out. He did as he was told, but he kind of got the hint that they were probably working with the police. While in town, he felt that there was police cars following him, but no one pulled him over. When he was finally back in contact with his company, he was told a load was ready for him to pick up the following day at the local fairgrounds. When he showed up on March 30th, 1995, he was greeted with sheriffs and taken into custody on suspicion of involvement of the murder of his fiancée, Julie Winningham.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Not a surprise. I mean, if you're paying attention to anything, you know.
Well, he knew. He knew it.
He knew. Detectives from Clark County, Washington were there to question him. The man in custody was named Keith Hunter Jesperson. 39-year-old Keith Jesperson was born April 6, 1955 in British Columbia, Canada, to parents Leslie and Gladys Jesperson. He was the middle child out of 5 children, so 2 older brothers, 2 younger sisters. His parents seemed the least interested in him out of all the 5 siblings. He wasn't very smart, not physically active, and was prone to spending a lot of time alone. His father was an abusive alcoholic that was fond of punishing Keith frequently. But not only that, he was fond of mental abuse as well. Leslie was a very intelligent man, had a very high IQ, and was considered an inventor of things. He was well known. And the fact that Keith was not as smart as him irritated him. His father was also fond of animal abuse, which is where Keith learned to torture animals at the very young age of 5 years old.
Jesus.
His mother, Gladys, was a very devout religious woman who had no other place in the household but to serve her husband and cater to his needs. The family lived on a farm while their needs were met. They were not well off financially. After Keith was able to get a job working for a production company, the family moved to Selah, Washington, and Keith was miserable. He had no true friends, and even his siblings didn't like to be around him. He turned to spending time alone in, quote, Keith's world, where this, place in his mind where he could live out fantasies. But he was bullied constantly, even by his siblings, his family.
Even in Keith's world?
Yeah, not in Keith's world. When Keith reached 8th grade, he was so confused sexually that he began to fantasize about rape, not understanding that that was not what the
normal
sexual act should be.
Yeah.
That's what he assumed it should be. Because of his mother's religious nature, sex was never a topic discussed in the house. But contradictory to that, his father would go into graphic detail about the sex act and how women were only good for one thing, pleasing a man.
Huh.
By the time he entered high school, he was well over 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And very bulky. But he had a dream of becoming an officer in the Royal Mounted Canadian Police and turned to sports to get physically fit.
Okay.
It was during a wrestling practice warm-up that he had permanent damage to his left foot. He was made to climb a rope, but when he reached the top, the rope disconnected from the mounting on the ceiling, and he fell 25 feet to the ground. Hardwood floor.
Yeah.
Keith hit his head hard, and he had torn ligaments in his left foot that caused it to swell up.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's a piece of shit, but that sucks.
Yeah, but I think at that point, he could have been a piece of shit that was rehabilitated.
No, he's 5 years old torturing animals.
Yeah, but look at where he was. Look at his condition of life.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get that.
If there had been an intervention, I think at this point, he would have been a sick individual, but I don't know that he would have killed. Because at this point he hadn't even had sex. So I think there's a lot that could have changed the trajectory of where he went. Mm-hmm. Only those things never happened for him. It got worse and worse and worse. So his foot, because the swelling and the pain, he did go to the doctor eventually for it, and they were like, oh, it's a sprained ankle. Well, no, it wasn't. It was torn ligaments.
Oh, shit.
And he had a swollen foot and a limp for a good amount of time. And classmates, even his family, began to call him Igor. And it was a nickname that stuck with him for a long time. He eventually did have 3 surgeries to correct his foot. Mm-hmm. But it was begrudgingly done because his family didn't really think that he needed it.
Or have money for it.
Right. His life after school did get a little bit better. He would meet and later marry his first girlfriend, Rose Pernick, on her 18th birthday. Rose wanted to escape her family home, and this seemed like the way to do it. But their marriage was never happy. Keith had problems holding on to good employment, and this caused a lot of arguments and a lot of stress, especially when the couple began having children in 1979.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, they would have 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy.
Do we know where they're at now?
I know some things about one of them, the oldest. Surprisingly, Keith loved his children, even if he wasn't always there or had no idea to father them.
Yeah.
He had issues, but he treated his children pretty well. He tried to do the right thing for them. And although his marriage was rocky, he tried to stay committed to his marriage. But after the death of his mother, something seemed to just kind of turn off in Keith. People remarked that he seemed more introverted than ever, very closed off, very emotionless. Soon after Gladys passed on, Keith was cheating on his wife, and they agreed to divorce. And that was how the urges to kill began. As you know, his first victim was Tanya Bennett.
Yeah.
Keith was down on his luck that day, decided to waste some time at a bar. He had just finalized his divorce from his wife, and she had up and moved the kids to Spokane, Washington, so he had nobody in his life at that point. When he walked in the bar, Tanya was playing pool with a couple of guys, but she noticed him looking at her and soon asked if he wanted to join in. They talked for some time, but he declined the offer and he went home. But his thoughts were running wild at the possibility of a sexual encounter with her. It wasn't long before he returned to the bar, and just as he was pulling in the parking lot, Tanya was walking out of the door alone. The two talked for some time, and then Keith offered to take her to get a meal. She readily agreed. But first he said he would need to go by his house to pick up a $20 bill since he was short on cash.
Mm-hmm.
Tanya would enter the house with him, but left her purse with her Walkman and her ID, everything in the truck. When she willingly went into the house, Keith assumed that she was willing to have sex with him. Unfortunately, we know the outcome of what happened to Tanya. It was Keith's first kill, and he enjoyed it, leading to the other 7 victims he would kill and others who were raped but managed to get away from him. When Laverne Pavlinac and John Cesnovsky admitted to and were convicted of Tanya's death, Keith was both irritated at not getting the credit.
Of course.
But also he realized he could get away with a lot if he did it right.
Just shows how narcissistic this guy is.
Yes. Thus the truck stop bathroom note and the series of letters he sent to various places. But that brings us back to Julie Winningham, his murdered fiancée, and the fact that the police were definitely on to him. So for over 6 hours, Keith Jesperson was questioned, but he admitted to nothing. He told the detectives from Washington that Julie was into drugs and liked to party, so he wasn't surprised that she was dead. He kind of figured as long as they didn't have hard evidence on him, that he wasn't going to admit to it. They took fingerprints, photos, as well as hair and blood samples, but couldn't keep him in custody without any substantial evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So Keith was released. That night, knowing that the walls were caving in on him, he tried to commit suicide by taking a bunch of pain medicine. The only thing that happened was he passed out in the sleeper cabin of his truck. It wasn't even like, it was over-the-counter pain medication. It wasn't even like he had narco or anything. He woke up a few hours later, none the worse for wear, maybe just a slight headache. He tried again, but again, the attempt failed. He then tried with sleeping pills, but it didn't work. Deciding that he was nearly caught and he was going to not escape this fate, he wrote a letter to his brother and detailed everything he had done and to whom. It begins as follows. Quote,
Hi, Brad. Seems like my luck has run out. I got into a bad situation and got caught up with emotion. I killed a woman in my truck during an argument. I'm sure they will kill me for this. I'm sorry that this turned out this way. I've been a killer for 5 years, and I've killed 8 people and assaulted more.
So after sending that letter off, he called Detective Buckner from Clark County, Washington, who had interrogated him just 2 days prior, and he confessed to the murder of Julie Winningham. On March 30th, 1995, Keith was in custody. He was on his way to Washington State. While awaiting a hearing, Keith tried to get his brother to dispose of the letter that he had sent him. So far, he had only confessed to authorities his connection in Julie's murder.
Yeah.
But in that letter, he confessed to all of the murders of the other women.
Oh, the letter to his brother?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
However, his brother told him it was already in police possession. Their father, Leslie, didn't want to go down for withholding evidence when his son was a prolific serial killer.
Yeah.
His own father said, fuck this kid. Turn that letter in. With nothing left to lose, Keith embraced his fate. When confessing to the murder of Tanya Bennett, he cried outrage that 2 people were sitting in jail who had nothing to do with the crime. He spoke of the incompetence of the police to recognize the confessions were weak and that the courts had convicted the wrong people with no evidence.
Yeah.
He was loving the attention and the limelight.
Sure he was. That's what he craved.
That's what he wanted.
You know, especially being the middle kid, being ignored.
Right.
Marsha.
I mean, pretty much, yeah. He was able to prove that he was the murderer of Tanya Bennett by leading police to where he had disposed of her purse, which was still in the bushes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was still there. It was down, it's down a ravine, so it wasn't traveled a whole lot. And so they had to go in and cut back this bush, blackberry bushes, I believe they were, and really get into this ravine. But it was there, as was her ID in the purse. Everything was still there. He also led investigators to the location of where the remains of Angela Sabritz had been left in Florida by giving a detailed account of the location to authorities. Until that time, she had not been found. Keith Jesperson pled guilty to the murders of Julianne Winningham, Angela Sabritz, and Lorianne Pentland. He pled no contest to the murder of Tanya Bennett. So he currently sits at the Oregon State Penitentiary, where he is serving 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He's becoming quite the pen pal and artist while in prison, and he still signs his name with the smiley face.
That's just fucking sick.
Yeah, and he loves it. So what about our friends Laverne and John? You may be wondering.
Yeah.
After petitioning for the courts to overturn their convictions due to Jesperson's no contest plea and conviction of the murder of Tanya Bennett, they were both released in 1996.
Oh.
Both had served 5 years in prison by that time for crimes they didn't commit.
But they admitted to.
Right. Only because she was so desperate to get this man, this abusive, drunk man, out of her life, that she was willing to go to jail if it meant he went to jail too.
Wow.
Domestic abuse it makes you mentally unhinged.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's the effect of what he must have done to her that she thought this was her way out is scary.
Yeah.
It just, and that's why the detectives from the beginning were like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense that this woman, this grandma who dotes on her children and her grandchildren and is serving us tea with doilies is telling us that she choked a woman while her boyfriend raped her and beat her senseless. It doesn't connect.
No. Not one bit.
No.
Yeah, and you're right. And they were right. But then they still fell for it.
I think the detective reluctantly arrested her.
Yeah.
They actually took her confession and then left. They didn't arrest her right away. The DA told them to go back. You got a confession, arrest her, bring her in.
Yeah.
And they reluctantly did that. They didn't even handcuff her when they put her in the car. So it really, I think this is probably, and I don't know what type of abuse she endured. I don't know what it was over that 10-year period of their relationship.
Yeah.
But it was enough that she was okay to go to prison if he went to.
Oh, yeah. Because he probably blacked out so many times and just beat the crap out of her.
I mean, probably.
I can't say for sure, but I mean.
No, I don't know for sure.
He doesn't even know if he killed her.
Right. He began to be scared that he might have done it in one of his blackouts. Yeah.
How do you go through life like that? Just stop it.
I don't know.
Get some help.
Yeah.
No, it's just, if you know, like, if you, like, how bad is it that you have to question yourself? Did I fucking kill her?
Right.
Holy shit. You should get some fucking help. Hopefully those 5 years in fucking prison.
I mean, I would
sober.
hope so, but I doubt it. I mean, I'm sure he got sober, but I think all he got was pissed off at Laverne.
But at some point you got to be like, oh, fuck it, I'm here.
Yeah. I think they were both pretty resigned to their fate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't, and it made me wonder because nowhere does it go back and talk about, who's this friend that he got in the car with that had a body? Well, like, is that a bullshit statement or did that really happen? Is there another woman that we should be aware of that could be missing and murdered? Like, where's this friend?
We need this friend.
I was like, where's the follow-up here? Like, what, did anybody talk to this friend?
Fuck no. I'm pretty sure the DA was just so dead set on you know.
Oh no, he was happy he got his prosecution. Yeah. He got his, conviction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was happy for it. So there's a Netflix documentary that I watched called Catching Killers.
Oh yeah.
And the first it's 4 episodes. The first episode was the Green River Killer.
Who's that?
which to this day is our number one episode.
Yes, it is.
It's crazy. That's the first episode that we put out, and it's still our most listened to episode.
Yes.
But I mean, given where we are and given him and his notoriety, it doesn't surprise me that much. But I am still kind of surprised when I see 56 downloads over a week period of time or something from that episode that was almost 2 years ago now. But yeah,
61 episodes ago.
That was the first episode, was talking about the Green River Killer. And then they talked about...
No, our first episode was Who, What, Where, When, Why.
I'm talking about this docuseries.
Oh, the docuseries.
That was the first episode. That was our first real episode, honey. Yeah,
no, I know.
We put out our introduction, but I consider that our first episode.
If we could go back and do it again.
What? Do what again?
Start over.
Why? Why would we do that?
Yeah.
I liked where we started. I think we did good. I thought we did good.
Okay.
For not having ever done anything like this and barely having equipment. And I'm proud of us.
Yes. I'm very proud of us.
Yeah.
I'm just saying now, looking back, if we were going to start again, I would definitely put out, I don't know. I'm going into a different podcast.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. We haven't finished this episode. Let's not.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
Let's not turn the podcast into, I don't know. Maybe next season we can do that. Okay, if you have ideas,
or we'll
have a meeting. We'll have a meeting.
Yeah,
we'll discuss this. And now I've lost my train of thought. I'm so far off. Oh, the second episode was about, what is her name? Warnos.
Eileen Warnos.
Yes, Eileen.
Yeah.
I was going to say Arlene. Eileen Warnos. And then the last two episodes are on Jesperson.
The last two?
Yes.
Dang.
So I recommend people go watch this docuseries. It's like I said, it's only 4 episodes. They are about an hour-ish long each.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I say, even to this day, the DA, he's sitting down and confronted with the knowledge that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And he won't admit to it.
Well, of course not. Because here's the thing about the DAs is their job is to put people away and make people feel safe. And if you go back on that word, people don't feel safe. They question your, integrity. They question your position in life. There's no fucking way he's going to go back and admit, I was wrong.
Okay, but
people don't do that shit.
I don't want you prosecuting people if you can't get the right people. That does not make me trust you.
No, the problem is that he convinced 12 people to fucking
really
convict
did.
him.
Yeah.
That's the fucking problem, with no evidence.
Right.
Who are these fucking people?
Right.
They're not my peers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a huge problem, I think, is that there are people so persuasive that you can get a jury convinced with no physical evidence that these people belong behind bars.
Yeah.
No physical evidence at all. And I don't like convictions that are based off of self-incrimination.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't think you can trust them unless you can back them up with something.
Yeah.
And all they had was her statements against another person. And he wasn't even sure what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
Was he there? Was he not there? Was he in a car with a friend with a dead body in the back? Was he even at the same bar? No. He wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And all she had was knowing where the body was found because they put it in the fucking paper.
Yeah.
And her 3 different versions of how that night went down.
And give me the cops. Oh, where was the body? Show us where the body was. Good enough for me. Let's go.
Right. Exactly. So something that I want to add to this is that Jesperson's eldest daughter, Melissa, has come forward to share what her life was with her father. So kind of the same as our episode last week with Charles Sinclair, his daughter, Pam.
Yeah.
She, in many respects, has put herself out there and almost rode his notoriety in a different way. So I first learned about her in the Happy Face Killer because I was actually, while this was researching Robert Lee Yates, and that's the Spokane serial killer.
Yeah.
Melissa was the host of a docuseries that focused on the families of serial killers and how they went on with their lives. And also in that show, they, tried to reach out to the families of victims to make connections.
Yeah.
And this docuseries, she was the first episode. Her and her father, Keith Jesperson. Oh my God. That was the first episode of this docuseries. Robert Lee Yates and his two of his children, were the second episode.
Oh, wow.
So she's also gone on to write a book. She has been on multiple shows, Dr. Phil, Oprah, news outlet shows, like ABC News, things like that.
Yeah.
Talking about what it was like to have her father be the Happy Face Killer and things that she noticed and reconcile. And again, it was like with Pam Sinclair in the last episode, reconciling that this father that you loved was this person.
Yeah.
And she knew Julie Winningham. He was going back and forth from his trucking jobs and was in his children's lives even after he divorced from their mom.
Yeah.
They knew Julie. Julie had a son. They knew her son. It wasn't like this was an unknown person to them. And it was very interesting to, look at it from her perspective as well. So I think this just kind of tied into that theme from last episode.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to focus on that this episode because his victims, it was what he did to his victims was just, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And she's had her say, she's really put herself out there and tried to be an advocate for family members of people who have committed crimes like this, horrific crimes.
Yeah.
She's tried to be an advocate for them so that they get support as well. So I think you can find her information. With Charles Sinclair daughter, that was the first interview that she had ever done. And I found that interesting from her perspective. And that is why I didn't approach this the same way. Because you can find Melissa's information out there, it's been out there for years. So I thought that was interesting though, that she's tried to do that. And like I said, she's almost kind of riding on the tails of his notoriety to do that.
But I mean,
but in a different way.
She's been put in this special circumstance too. I don't think anyone could just do that.
No.
You know what I mean?
No,
and she has the experience and she knows that she's not the only one.
Right.
And it's such a niche, there's not like a ton of them.
Right. No, I mean, it's not like you're going to call up a support group and be like, oh, anybody else here know what I've gone through? Chances are no. But it is an interesting thing. If anybody is interested in watching her docuseries, I'll link it. But there is a lot of information about Jesperson out there. There are multiple books. There's multiple documentaries. I've seen him come up in other research that I've done a lot, referencing him. And like I said, he's happy to sit in jail and write letters to people.
Yeah. And
people sell his letters. People sell his art. He sells his art to people. One other thing that I wanted to, a little tidbit of information that, if in case you're not disgusted enough, I was reading that while in prison, Keith had managed, with the help of a person on the outside, to set up a website and sell serial killer starter kits that included a murdered woman blow-up doll.
What the fuck?
Right. You're not cute.
No.
It's not cute. It's not funny. Whoever on the outside was helping him do this, fuck you.
Drugs are bad, okay?
Yeah. So the website was taken down after the father of Polly Klaas he became a huge activist. And he was able to raise enough red flags that AOL took the site down in 1997.
AOL. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. I don't know how the fuck you even have the nerve to be part of that when you've done these horrible things to women, and for somebody on the outside to help you and think that was okay.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Right.
Let's try that. I'm in on it.
Yeah. Is it as if you're not disgusted enough.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit more. So, yeah, that is the happy face killer. Not to be confused with the smiley face killer. Those are different people.
Oh.
Yes.
Future episode?
I don't know, because I really didn't think that they were in Washington in any way, or the Pacific Northwest. I'm going to have to look at that again. I read a little bit about them, but I'm going to have to revisit that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe. All right, guys. Well, we have had a very heavy episode.
Yeah.
Bryce, with your 60-minute, or what was it, 2020?
Was it 20? I don't know.
Was it a 2020 interview? I thought it was.
Maybe. Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's 2020 interview of the Turpin kids. Yeah, we had a sad start to a sad case.
But even better stuff. Dexter's back. I didn't think I would miss that show. Sorry.
I know you loved that show. I never watched.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah,
He's back.
I'm not into it for some reason. I don't know. Did you watch it?
Oh yeah, I've watched all 4 so far.
Why am I even asking this?
Oh yeah, it's back, and it feels good. It feels right again, and like the story and everything. I hated how it ended. Hated. It was the worst. It's up there with Game of Thrones.
I know you did.
Yeah,
you were angry. But
now he's back. He's done some things, and now his son is there. It's a crazy dynamic. I didn't think they could repeat magic. We'll see. They're only 4 episodes in, but
don't
Dexter New Blood.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to continue to watch The Golden Girls on repeat while I investigate and research serial killers.
Okay,
it makes me happy.
Good.
The Golden Girls are iconic.
Yeah.
And I will never get enough. Yeah. I'd be happy to watch that for the rest of my life.
Sure.
I would.
Yeah.
Who's with me? Stay golden.
Yes.
Yes.
And one more note, just shout out Will Browning, Bad Brothers Podcast. Will is another podcaster.
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to give him a shout out.
All right.
Shout out, Will.
I will. I don't know you, but I've heard about you.
It's all good, Will. I promise.
What's
it's
that?
all good. It's all good.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, we hope that you guys stay safe, be kind to one another, and enjoy the holiday season the best you can.
Ho, ho, ho.
It's about family. Don't make it about other shit.
That's right.
Be kind and love yourselves, and stay out of the damn woods.
Stay out of the woods.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
What Happens in the Woods is an independent podcast and is managed and produced by Gospel for the Rebels, LLC. Research and content are presented by host Jessica, with all editing and producing done by your favorite resident techie, Bryce. We believe in transparency and will always list our sources and information in our episode notes. We are always looking for new cases and stories to tell. We welcome your interaction with us on Facebook and Instagram at WHIT Podcast, and at Twitter, What Happens in the Woods, INT2. Or if you prefer, our website is whathappенsinthewoods.com. The campfire is open to all. Thank you for your continued support of our podcast. If you love us and want to continue to hear us bring you episodes, please share and like us wherever you can. But the best way to help us grow is to hit all 5 stars and review us on whatever platform you get your podcast fix. Until we meet again, campers, stay safe and stay out of the damn woods.